Jaya Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Gopijana Vallabha Girivardhari. Gopijana Vallabha Girivardhari. Yashodanandana Bhajana Ranjana. Yashodanandana Bhajana Ranjana. Yamuna Tira Vanachari. Yamuna Tira Vanachari. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jaya Om Vishnupad Paramahamsa Parivajaka Astotar to the Sri Srimad, His Divine Grace Srila A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada Ki Jai. ISKCON Founder Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Jai Om Vishnupad Paramahamsa Parivajaka Astotar to the Sri Srimad, His Divine Grace Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur Ki Jai. Ananta Koti Vaishnava Ki Jai. Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur Ki Jai. Srimad Bhagavad Gita Ki Jai, Samaveda Bhaktivinoda Ki Jai. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to Shri Guru and Gauranga. So before I begin, Bhakta Chet, you're in charge of finding someone who knows how to tighten the big side of this drum. Okay? Between now and tomorrow, sometime. Okay. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. So text 19. Okay. On this 24th day of December 2024 in San Diego, we're reading from Srimad Bhagavad Gita as it is, translation and commentary by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. We are in chapter 16, the Divine and Demoniac Natures, text number 19 at the bottom of page 632. 632. Okay. Tanaham Dvishatak Kruran Samsareshu Naradhaman Chapami Ajasram Ashubhan Asurishu Eva Yonishu Tanaham Dvishatakuran Samsareshu Naradaman Chapam Yajasram Ashubhan Asurishu Yonishu Tanaham Dvishatakuran Samsareshu Naradaman Chapam Yajasram Ashubhan Asurishu Yonishu Tanaham Dvishatakuran Samsareshu Naradaman Chapam Yajasram Ashubhan Asurishu Yonishu. Tanaham Dvishatakuran Samsareshu Naradaman Chapam Yajasram Ashubhan Asurishu Yonishu. Go ahead. Tanaham Dvishatakuran Samsareshu Naradaman Chapam Yajasram Ashubhan Asurishu Yonishu. Tanaham Dvishatakuran Samsareshu Naradaman Chapam Yajasram Ashubhan Asurishu Yonishu. Nelson, go ahead. Tanaham Dvishatakuran Samsareshu Naradaman Chapam Yajasram Ashubhan Asurishu. Ladies? Tanaham Dvishatakuran Samsareshu Naradaman Chapam Yajasram Ashubhan Asurishu Yonishu. Tanaham Dvishatakuran Samsareshu Naradaman. Ani. Tanaham Dvishatakuran Samsareshu Naradaman Chapam Yajasram Ashubhan Asurishu. Antonella. Tanaham Dvishatakuran Samsareshu Naradaman Chapam Yajasram Ashubhan Asurishu. Okay, I'm going to read the word by word, just read along silently. Tan, those, aham, I, Dvishatahak, envious, Kruran, mischievous, Samsareshu, into the ocean of material existence, Nara Adaman, the lowest of mankind, Chapami, I put, Ajasram, perpetually, Ashubhan, inauspicious, Asurishu, demoniac, Eva, certainly, yonishu, into the wombs. Translation, Krishna says, those who are envious and mischievous, who are the lowest among men, I perpetually cast into the ocean of material existence, into various demoniac species of life. Purport. In this verse, it is clearly indicated that the placing of a particular individual soul in a particular body is the prerogative of the supreme will. The demoniac person may not agree to accept the supremacy of the Lord, and it is a fact that he may act according to his own whims, but his next birth will depend upon the decision of the Supreme Personality of Godhead and not on himself. In the Srimad Bhagavatam, 3rd canto, it is stated that an individual soul, after his death, is put into the womb of a mother where he gets a particular type of body under the supervision of superior power. Therefore, in the material existence, we find so many species of life, animals, insects, men, and so on. All are arranged by the superior power. They are not accidental. As for the demoniac, it is clearly said here that they are perpetually put into the wombs of demons, and thus they continue to be envious, the lowest of mankind. Such demoniac species of men are held to be always full of lust, always violent and hateful, and always unclean. The many kinds of hunters in the jungle are considered to belong to the demoniac species of life. Om Jnana Timirandasya Jnanandjana Shalakaya Chakshur Unmilitam Mena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. I was born in the darkest of ignorance, but my spiritual master Srila Prabhupada opened my eyes with the torchlight of knowledge. I offer my humble obeisances unto him and to all members of Shri Parampara. So, we're approaching the end of this chapter, and Krishna has very clearly defined divine qualities at the beginning, a whole list, I think, of 26, 28 qualities. And then since then he's been describing the demoniac persons. And what the whole point is that we have, because we're human beings, we have the opportunity to cultivate the divine qualities. Even if we happen to be born in a family that's completely atheistic, just like Prahlad Maharaj, right? He was born, but he was a great devotee because of the influence of Narada Muni before he was even born. So what this chapter does is it lays out a very stark contrast between divine and demoniac. Divine qualities, as we read at the beginning, consist of religiousness, self-control, morality, kindness, lack of greed, lust, and so forth, keeping the control of the senses. There's a whole list there. And the wonderful thing is, by the process of Krishna consciousness, we can cultivate those qualities. And here's the alternative. If we just don't care, and we just go along in our atheistic way, say, of life in the modern world, yes, there are religions, but are they really cultivating the divine qualities? That's another thing. So then this is the fate. In other words, there are consequences for what we do with our lives. It's not that the big original premise of the Bhagavad Gita, which Krishna teaches Arjuna at the beginning of his instructions in the 2nd chapter, is that we don't die. Vijayate mayate vakadachan nayam budva bhavitava anabuya. Ajo nityak shashvato yam purano nahanyate hanyamane sharire. Now, this is important for everyone to understand, but it was critical for Arjuna to understand, because he was very reluctant to participate in the killing of the people on the other side, especially Bhishma Dev and Dronacharya, and so many others who he had a close relationship with, either a blood relationship or friendship, whatever it may be. And so he was paralyzed, actually, because he knew his duty was to fight in the battle. The battle had been building for some time, and it was really a question of good and evil, whether Duryodhana was going to become victorious and rule the world as the son of Dhritarashtra, or whether Dharma personified in the form of Yudhishthira would rule the world. And we know what side Krishna was on. He's on the side of the good, on the Pandavas. And so, and Arjuna was a critical factor in that, because he was the chief warrior on the side of the Pandavas. And he was, of course, an intimate dear friend of Krishna's. So the whole drama has so many dimensions, if you will. And for us, the principles that Krishna speaks to Arjuna are imperative for us to understand. If we want to achieve the best goal in our lives, which ultimately is to end our cycle, in the cycle of birth, old age, disease, and death, which we've been in for we don't know how many countless times, right? But the wonderful thing is, if we believe it, or let's say suspend our disbelief and our doubt that we are eternal, we lived before and we'll live again, and we'll never die. Krishna says, Ajo nitya shashvato yam purano. These qualities belong to Krishna, and they also belong to us. He's unborn, he's eternal, he's ever existing, and we're part and parcel of Krishna. We learned that in the 14th chapter, 15th chapter. Mamai vangsho jiva loke jiva bhuta sanatana. Manakshastan indriyani pakatistani karshiti. These living entities, every single one, not just human beings, wherever you see life, these trees, you know, they're growing, they're striving, they're struggling to just stay alive, some of them. I mean, do they water these big trees? I don't know. You know, it hasn't rained here for at least 2 months, 3 months, because I take a walk every day, and I would see the results of the rain. There's no rain. So somehow the trees are surviving. They're going on from day to day, you know. They are alive. The little plants are alive. The insects are alive. The fish out there, millions and trillions of fish, they're as alive as we are. They are as much living entities as we are. But they perform some activity in their human life to lose the human form of life, as Krishna will describe in subsequent verses. I cast them down into demoniac species of life in today's verse. So he says perpetually, but perpetually here doesn't mean forever. There's no eternal damnation in Krishna's world. Because after all, even the most demoniac species of life is still a living entity, a son, a descendant of Krishna. So Krishna claims us all, and yes, there's some severe punishment, but the whole idea is to learn from that. It's like when we're kids and your parents punish you, they don't want you to disappear forever, and just they're trying to correct you for your own good. For your own good. That's the point. So the point of this Bhagavad Gita, the point of this whole movement, is to impress on us, number one, that a godless attitude toward life, and a simply trying to live according. Yes, it's a little crowded, but we have enough cushions for you, and we even may have enough books for you. So please take a seat. You're also welcome. This is a huge crowd. In days gone by, if we had 10 people here, it was a huge crowd. This is a special celebration, Christmas celebration. Hare Krishna. But so this chapter is very bracing. It's very sobering if you really study the chapter, because we can be demoniac. You know, I could walk out, you know, and be attracted to these qualities of the demons. But I would soon learn, if I keep reading the chapter, how disastrous it is for your life, right? He's casting you down, there's suffering, you don't know your destination, you know, and it's all because of the qualities that you cultivated, the activities that you performed. It's a very important point, is that our destiny is in our own hands. This is the very important point. Is that the whole thing is the consciousness that we cultivate. Back in chapter 8, the 3 verses that kind of, you know, summarize the whole point. He says, first Krishna is very encouraging. Antakale chamameva, smaran mukva kalevidam, yakpriyati samudbhavam, yasi natyatra samshaya. Antakale is the end time of this body, the time of death. We shouldn't be depressed about it. We've been through it a million times before. You see? So, Andakale chamameva smaran, but one who remembers me, says Krishna, at that time. Smadan mukva kalevadam, when you're liberated from the body. So then what's going to happen? Yak priyati samadbhavam, they come to my world, they come to my nature, you see. There's no doubt about it. Nasti yatrata samshaya, there's no doubt. And then he gives the general principle. Yang vapi smadang bhavam, jajatyante kalevadam, tamtame vaiti konteya, sadatad bhava bhavitaha. See, this is a very important, it summarizes practically the whole philosophy. Whatever you think of, this is like a Sanskrit idiom, yum yum, means whatever you think of at the time of death, whatever is predominant thought, smadang bhavam, whatever you remember, yang yam bhapi smadang, chajat yante kalevadam, when you give up the body, when you leave the body is broken down as an old machine, you die. But you're not dead. Kalevadam, tam tam evaiti konteya sadatal bhava bhavada. That will determine your next life. It's important to understand we have two bodies. Everyone knows what the body is. We see what we see in the mirror. We're all sitting here. But we also have the subtle body, which is the key. The mind, the intelligence, and the ego. That doesn't die. When this body dies, that doesn't die. And that there's a record in there. Even the psychologists, they know that there's a whole subconscious. Whatever you experience, it's recorded in your mind and it can have an impact. Everyone knows if a child, some tragic thing happens, have some trauma there, that can last a lifetime. It can be. I had a serious disease when I was 5 years old. I was in the hospital, and it was some kind of a infectious disease, and my parents couldn't even visit me. But luckily I was on the bottom floor of the hospital, and they would come. I have one brother. They would come every day in the evening, and they would see me through the window, so I was encouraged that way. But it was a traumatic thing. I remember distinctly because it was some kind of a spinal thing, and if it got to my brain, I'd be finished. So they had to inject some. This is like 1953. It wasn't like modern medicine, a long time ago. And so they had to keep me very quiet and still in order to inject it just at the right place so it would work, So they had this nurse sit on me. I could hardly move. You imagine a kid, of course they were trying not to crush me, obviously, but it was traumatic. I remembered it. I remember it to this day. Anyway, it worked. My father was freaked out. He was afraid that I had brain damage, because they did the hole in the stuff, put the tabs on to see if your brain's working all right. Luckily, there was no damage, And I remember he gave me a little cap pistol, and I got out, and everything was okay. But it may have had some long-term effects on me. I don't know. But whatever it was, I ended up joining the Hare Krishna, so it was auspicious. But this is the material world, and anything can happen. There could be an earthquake and a tsunami out there. We had this nice walk on the beach yesterday with the deities, with Jagannath deities. This was our little, getting back into the Ratha Yatra movie. We used to have a Ratha Yatra every year here in association with the Earth Day Festival down in Balboa Park. It was very ecstatic. But everyone knows the pandemic happened and they stopped doing the Earth Day Festival. So we haven't done a Ratha Yatra for a while, so we're getting back into it. But it was so nice, out there, and you look at the ocean. It was just sunset. It was a beautiful situation. But I walked back alone because I was given the talk, so I had to prepare, It took a little while. So I'm walking along the beach, and big waves were coming in, And the sunset, it was quite dramatic. And then I saw some people running from the waves, And I said, what is that, a tsunami or something? People are running, going on. Because to be honest with you, this is really freakish. I live 3 blocks from the temple, I hardly ever don't go down to the beach. I may have drowned in my last life. Because I've never it's ironic. I was raised on Long Island. Every summer, every Sunday, my father would take us to the beach. We'd go down to the beach. We're right there by the beach. I hardly ever went in. I was a skinny little kid. It was so cold, I would build sand castles and everything, But I never learned to swim until I went to college, because there was a requirement in the first year that you had to swim, so I learned how to swim, Anyway, I don't want to get off into that. But the point is that there's this verse that I've been meditating on. I just turned 77, so it won't be long now. It's like I'm try to maintain my health as far as possible, but you know. So there's a beautiful ashtaka about the holy name, Mother Ashtaka. Maybe I'll save a little time at the end to give the whole thing. And there's one verse in the middle of that always struck me. This one really is memorable. And the Sanskrit goes like this: Nikshvase nahi vishvaso kadadudho bhavishyati kirtane matabalyad hare nama eva kevalam. Those who are familiar with the books a little bit may recognize that last line. It's part of a very important verse. Hare nama eva kevalam kalo nasteva gataranyata. You know that one. If you want to achieve the supreme goal of life in this age when dissension and chaos abound, there is no other way, there is no other way, there is no other way that can ever be found but to chant Krishna's name, but to chant Krishna's name, but to chant Krishna's name with a stout-hearted vow, and to pray, O Lord Krishna, O friend of the poor, let my head ever under your lotus feet bow. I put it into a little poem. So, now in this prayer, in this ashtaka, it's very beautiful. There's one that just sticks out with me, especially now that I'm getting older. So I gave you the Sanskrit, here's the English. Remember that our final breath may come at any time, no matter if we're old and sick or in our youthful prime. So young and old alike should chant the name incessantly. The holy name of Shri Hari is surely all that be. And that little boy over there is chanting. That's what he's creating. Is he chanting Hare Krishna? He will be soon. So just think of that. The point is really true. I mean, are we really assured? The pandemic there was a silver lining, that everybody's got to think about, whoa, the tenuousness of our life in these bodies. And actually, we had a whole bunch of people join at that time, believe it or not. We had about 6 or 8 young men join. A few of them stayed and become central. But because suddenly no one could escape it. You know, it was worldwide. And everyone had to, but isn't that what Hare Krishna? If you can't keep quiet, you have to ask it. Yeah, the children, it's hard, but obviously. So, because it was right. This is one of the things that Prabhupada would emphasize, you know, in all the lectures, and Krishna emphasizes in the Bhagavad Gita, is that this life is temporary and human life is very special, and so you should use it in such a way that you won't have to take birth again. It's as simple as that. It's the wisest investment. Actually, every day we're investing our time in something. The whole thing is your attention, right? This is an attention economy. The internet, they strive to get your attention so that they can sell you something, you know. But Krishna and Prabhupada want to get your attention for your own good. Because if you pay attention to Krishna and you discipline your mind, the whole thing is to get the control of the mind so that it will more and more and more you'll think of Krishna. So that one day, everything you do, there's a beautiful verse in the 11th canon. I think I can remember the Sanskrit. Kayen nabacha munasendiyava buddhyapmanaya. What is it? Padade Swabhava. Karoti yad yad sakalam pradasmai narayanayeti samarbriyeta. Thank you. This is a scholar there. So, it's Kayen nabacha. He's giving a list of all of our assets that we have. The body, the words, the mind, manasa, the intelligence, whatever else you have, you should be using that in the service of the Lord at every moment, so that you could say, I'm offering this to Narayan. You're walking from here to there. Oh, I'm going to perform some service. Therefore, I'm walking for Narayan. Even when you take rest, I'm taking rest, so the body can become rejuvenated, and I can use it. So that every moment you can think, I'm serving Narayan. This is pure devotional service. Yes, it's difficult to get that mentality because we're so conditioned to thinking in other ways. But that's the whole struggle, is that to sublimate every one of our activities, all the activities of our senses, you know. That we have the eyes, we can see the deities, and we can read, right? And we can hear. The most important sense is the hearing and the speaking. You can decide to hear whatever you want. You can go to the rave. Do they still have raves? I don't know. I'm kind of out of touch with that. But, you know, you can spend your time. I used to be a big jazz aficionado, believe it or not. I grew up in New York. There were so many clubs there. We had records, you know, jazz and folk music and classical music. No rock music, no Elvis Presley in our house. Big culture, big deal. But now I don't want to hear that. You know, I don't want to go there. even the symptom. Although I do remember one thing, I became very attracted to Bach's Mass in B minor. Does anyone know about that? It was there was a chorus singing, you know, hymns. It was a religious thing, you know. It was, and the music is beautiful, you know, as Johann Sebastian Bach. Anyway, I won't get into that. But the whole point of this chapter is to sober us up and to see what can happen if we just go with the flow. You go with the flow and you go down, down, down. You know, we don't want to go with the flow. We want to keep our head above water, and we want to cultivate Krishna consciousness. So, you know, those who are envious, mischievous, the lowest among men. And who is that? Those who are cruel, who are hurting others. These are especially the characteristics of the demons. Yesterday, many of you know this phrase, this famous phrase, paradukka dukkhi, paradukka dukkhi. That feeling others' pain as your own. Prahlad was a perfect example of that. I chanted this verse, many of you weren't here yesterday. He's near the end of his prayers to the Shringadev. He's giving the essential verses that are completely in tune with Lord Chaitanya's preaching movement. He's saying, first of all, in those two lines, he's explaining his position. Na udvijay, I'm not at all disturbed about anything. Because I'm already on the other side of the Vaitarani River, which means the world between the material and the spiritual world. Why am I there? Because I'm always thinking of you when you're situated over there. He's talking to the Shringadev. And at any time, and we can adopt this. Twadvi yagayana mahamanta magna chitta. I can chant your glories and immerse my mind in an ocean of nectar. What's not to like? If you just find how to do it. First of all, it takes approximately 15 seconds to learn the Hare Krishna mantra, the most valuable thing in the universe. It's free. And if you actually cultivate it, you can more and more and more appreciate and enjoy that vibration, because it's not different from Krishna. The purer you become, the more that Hare Krishna will be so much nectar. And Prabhupada knew that. He had great faith in that mantra. So he went into the heart of darkness of the Kali Yuga, you know, the middle of Manhattan, and it wasn't even uptown Manhattan. He went down to the Bowery. In order to get to where he was living, he had to ask the drunkard homeless people who were sleeping at his door. But they saw he was a saintly person, so they would roll over. You know, eventually they got benefit. Then he went up. He had to walk upstairs. You know, but what was he doing? Chanting Hare Krishna, getting people to chant, giving them prasadam, and teaching them, you know, the class, the basic philosophy. And because the mantra is so powerful, and Krishna wanted it to happen, they became attracted to come to those programs. And that eventually grew into the 22nd Avenue Temple. From there, it went uptown and, you know, all over the world. So the potency is obviously there. But it's up to us to embrace it, to become serious about advancing in Krishna consciousness. Because our happiness depends on it, ultimately. You know, we're only going to be in these bodies for so long, and at a certain point it becomes pretty austere. You know, so many of my God brothers and God sisters, they're in various stages of disability, and you know, a good number of them have passed away already. You know, and oftentimes it's very auspicious because they're among devotees and they're helping them to remember Krishna. But the more that Krishna conscious we can be, when we start, you know, getting to the point where the body's not doing exactly what we want it to do anymore, most of the time, then we'll have a shelter, we'll have a background and a culture of Krishna consciousness that will help us to face the next chapter. So it's all very serious. Nobody can deny that we're all going to face this moment at one time. So now, when we have our wits about us and we can control things, and we can, we should do as much of the practice as possible and associate with devotees. And here, we can hear from Prabhupada, there's such a treasure of actual recordings of him speaking. And there's no substitute for that. There's a verse about that. I remember the purport, Prabhupada speaking how the voice of the pure devotee is very potent because it comes in contact with the saffron mercy particles of Lord Krishna's lotus feet, and is carried with the wind of his voice, and it has such an effect. This is why Prabhupada's books can be so life-changing. There's no doubt here. He's so sure, and it can infuse that faith in you also. And then when you learn the towering intellects and pure souls who have embraced this philosophy, Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur and Bhaktivinoda Thakur and Madhvacharya and Ramanujacharya and all these, and Narada Muni and Lord Chaitanya and his associates. Now, they all believed in Krishna. They all showed by their lives how one could be purely Krishna conscious and be completely ecstatic. So who are we to doubt it? Well, I don't know. Doesn't sound right to me. No. The point is that this is how you develop faith, by learning about them, And the potency of Prabhupada's books, as I mentioned, it's all, he's not like speculating here. You can say if you get it, you read a book by Carl Jung or something, it can be fascinating, but there's a lot of things that he says, well, it could be like this, could be like this, probably like this, But there's none of that. Prabhupada is relying on everything on the revealed Shastra and the previous Acharyas and Krishna himself. That's what's so wonderful. This is Krishna speaking. So the whole point, as I heard several times in a lecture that Prabhupada gave, is that the Bhagavad Gita, one of the main purposes of it is to instill faith in us in the process. Krishna is speaking here, and when like the verses like Dehi nosmin yata dehe, is that familiar to many of us here? This is right at the beginning of Krishna's instruction. He begins in text 11 of chapter 2. This is text 13. So what does he say there? This is a verse that we can all, if you really get into it, the light should go on. Dehi nosme yata dehe, komaram yovanang jara, tata dehandara prapti, dhiras tattva namuyate. So just as the living entity is passing through a body from childhood to youth, adult, to adolescence and so on, that similarly, the soul gets another body after death. The sober-minded person is not bewildered by such a change. Now, when I first read that, it was a different translation exactly. It says the self-realized soul is not bewildered by such a change. Now, I don't know about anyone else who was reading that at that time, but there's no way, I had absolutely no doubt that was the soul who's dying, who's not bewildered when he dies. But that's not what that means. That's not what Krishna is doing. He's telling Arjuna, you don't be bewildered by the imminent death of those people who you're afraid to kill. Because they're not dying. They're getting another body. And because I'm here and they'll pass it away, then they're going to go back home, back to Godhead. So that's not, your whole calculation is off. Nobody's dying. As I had my little ditty, some of you have heard before. You got to understand, I'm an old editor, I call myself an inveterate veteran editor. So every body dies. Who can argue with that? Every single body dies. So that's the everybody. But of course there's a word everybody. But if you look carefully in the dictionary, one is pronounced everybody and one is pronounced everybody. You see the difference? Everybody dies, nobody dies. Wake up and open your eyes. You're not that body, you're a pure spirit soul. Chant the holy name and attain life's goal. Okay, I just want to leave with that. Hare Krishna. The whole thing is there in a nutshell, right? And then if you want an even smaller nutshell, here's Lord Chaitanya's instructions to Nityananda and Haridas Thakur for preaching. He sent them out to preach in Nadia. You remember that? And then they met Jaya and Vijay, the most famous thing. I mean, not Jaya and Vijay. Jagai Madai, who were Jaya and Vijay, I think. Anyway. So he told them, he gave him a mantra, right? Kind of a motto. Bolo Krishna, Koro Krishna Shika. This is what he said. You tell the people in the town to do these three things. This is their preaching, you know. So he told Jagai Madai, they became very angry. But so I took that and said, Bolo Krishna, Koro Krishna Shika. Just chant Shri Krishna's name and worship him with all your heart. Follow his instructions and to others them impart. It's the whole ball of wax right there. If you could do that perfectly. All right, any questions on this verse? We go on. We're almost at the end of the chapter, and it's very important verses. Yes, take the mic, because we have an audience, hundreds of people, I hope. One day.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Talk right into it, because I see you have a soft voice.
Okay. So my question is that in text 19 it says that if in the purport, I think it says that if you're cruel, then you're like, it's sinful to be cruel, right?
Uh-huh.
So what about people like, say, butchers? They
like
don't,
who?
Butchers.
Yes.
So what if they're just doing it as a job and they don't like killing the animals?
No, they have to quit the job.
But what if they can't? Like, if they can't quit the job, or else they're gonna be jobless, and like, yeah.
Yeah, you know, that's it's a difficult situation, but if it's a degree of, I mean, you're right. There's a difference, but it's you still have to suffer for it. It's just like if you get involved with some people, and they, you know, and you're friends, you're not particularly evil or anything, but then they say, come on, you know, we're going to do a job, you know, you're not quite sure what that means. You're just the driver, you know, and they go in and they rob a 7-Eleven or something, you know, and come out and say, let's go, you know, okay. You're still going to be part of the whole crime. You get prosecuted. Now, if when they went into the 7-Eleven, they hurt someone or even killed someone, and you come out, you might not be, you know, you might get life in prison, and they will get executed because they actually killed someone. But you're still part of the whole team that did it. You see, that's how it works legally, and that's how it works karmically also. So we have to realize the implications of what we're doing, and if someone understands that, then somehow or other he has to, first of all, aspire to get free of that and get another job, you know, somehow or other. Really, really wants to get another job. Pray, you know, you have to pray to Krishna, please let me get it, like, you know, like, so I can feed my children at the same time, not hurt so many animals like this. And if you're really sincere, then that you know, it'll come eventually, you know. And then, and there is, as you know, as we all know, and this is very important to realize, that just by chanting, you're also getting free from sinful actions. Just by chanting the holy name sincerely, avoiding offenses, you know. So that's there. I mean, you know, while he's, you know, working hard to get a different job, and chanting like crazy and praying, Krishna, please forgive me, you know. So it's a question of the sincerity, you know. But the important thing is the knowledge of why it's so evil. You know, you're hurting someone, and Prabhupada said you're interrupting their life, they have to come back as cows again, you know. And so it's very evil in all kinds of ways. But more, you know, more to the point, because how many people are really butchers? But those who just eat meat because, hey, that's what there is in the supermarket. You know, what's the big deal? But you explain to them, no, you are part of the whole crime. You know, if you purchase it and cook it. If no one purchased it at all, then they wouldn't have any butcher shops anymore or anything. So we individually need to take responsibility, and because we're human beings, we have that moral sense, we have the intelligence, we can do that, and pray to be free of that. And that's one of the big things that Prabhupada had. Hey, come here, we'll give you prasadam, you can eat, you see, and you can learn how to cook in such a way that you're not hurting anyone, hurting anything, any living being. All right, let's do another verse. Text 20. Asadim yonam apanna Mudha janmani janmani mama prapyaiva kaunteya tato yancha damam gatim. Okay, so he's going with the same theme here. The envious and the mischievous who are lowest among men. Attaining repeated birth amongst the species of demoniac life, O son of Kunti, such persons can never approach me. Gradually they sink down to the most abominable type of existence. Purport: it is known that God is all-merciful, but here we find that God is never merciful to the demoniac. It is clearly stated that the demoniac people, life after life, are put into the wombs of similar demons, and not achieving the mercy of the Supreme Lord, they go down and down, so that at last they achieve bodies like those of cats, dogs, and hogs. It is clearly stated that such demons have practically no chance of receiving the mercy of God at any stage of later life. In the Vedas also it is stated that such persons gradually sink to become dogs and hogs. It may be then argued in this connection that God should not be advertised as all-merciful if he is not merciful to such demons. In answer to this question, in the Vedanta Sutra we find that the Supreme Lord has no hatred for anyone. The placing of the asuras, the demons, in the lowest status of life is simply another feature of his mercy. Sometimes the asuras are killed by the Supreme Lord, but this killing is also good for them, for in Vedic literature we find that anyone who is killed by the Supreme Lord becomes liberated. There are instances in history of many asuras, Ravana, Kamsa, Hiranyakashipu, to whom the Lord appeared in various incarnations just to kill them. Therefore God's mercy is shown to the asuras if they are fortunate enough to be killed by him. So we don't want to go that route, to become asuras so that we can be killed by Krishna. We want to embrace the lotus feet of Krishna and pray that we can be happy serving him and that we cannot lose our consciousness of who we really are, and always have the association of devotees so that we can stay on the path back home, back to Godhead. And it really is this, how to chant. When you chant Hare Krishna, what is the mentality? How are you approaching the name? Are you really trying to avoid the 10 offenses? And do you embrace this simple instruction that Srila Prabhupada gave, that it really is just calling out to the Lord to please engage me in your service. And please engage me in your service more and more, so there's no gaps. I remember back in the old Brooklyn Temple, I remember that every so often you see on the wall they put up a sign, no gaps, meaning that, don't suspend your Krishna consciousness and let your mind go off into Maya. That's the real struggle. It's like there's remembrance, and then there's avismriti. You know what avismriti means? Never forgetting. So we're trying to remember, and we can all remember Krishna. Like pretty much now, I guess pretty much everyone's thinking of Krishna more or less, right? In this room. But then the time goes, you won't have the advantage, the deities and the Bhagavad Gita and everything. So it's an effort to mold our life in such a way that we can be thinking of Krishna at every moment. It's not easy, especially you have to live in this world among people who are anything but Krishna conscious, and you have to deal with them. So it's not easy. But that's the task that we have, and the benefit is so enormous that it's worth the effort, even if you don't. And this is what's so wonderful and so encouraging. Even if you don't succeed 100% in this life of becoming 100% Krishna conscious, there's no loss. Right at the beginning, if you recall Narada Muni's instruction to Vyasadeva about writing the Bhagavatam, said you wrote so many books, and who can argue that they're valuable? He wrote the Mahabharata, right? He wrote all the Puranas, including the Padma Purana. There's plenty about bhakti in the Padma Purana, as far as I know. But he didn't write anything that was wholly and solely about Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Excuse me. Let me take shelter of some water. And the devotees in the process of devotional service. So, and right at the beginning, he tells them, Chatvasa dharmam chadanambujang hare bhajanna pakfo tapate tato yadi. If someone gives up his duties in Varnashram, official duties, and joins the Hare Krishnas, basically, Chatvasa dharmam chadanambujang hare, takes shelter of the lotus feet of Hari, right? Practices. But bhajan apakvo, but his bhajan is not completely cooked, right? In other words, apakva. It's incomplete. And he gives it up. Bhajan apakvo tapatate tatoyadi. He falls down. Yatra kvavabhadram aburdhamushakim karvarta apto abhajatam swadharmataha. Where is the loss? Yes, his progress may be suspended, but he'll continue in the next life, just where he left off. You see? So there's no loss. But for someone who's very nicely performs his material duties in Varnashram, but there's no bhajan, where is there any gain? There's no gain. Because he's got to face birth, death, old disease again. He hasn't made any progress toward liberation. So therefore, he's saying, Tasyaiva heto prayate kovido nalabhyate yad brahmatama parayada. Talabhyate dukkha padannitak sukham kalena sarvatra gabhira rangasa. Right at the beginning of Bhagavatam, 5th chapter, 1st canto. So he said, therefore, one should strive, tasyaiva hate, for that end. Prayate, strive very hard. The intelligent person, kovido. That which you have not achieved from coming up and down the higher planets, lower planets, higher species, lower species, which is Krishna's lotus feet, which is liberation. Because whatever happiness you're destined to experience, you will have in this lifetime. We're struggling so hard to get a nice material position so you enjoy, But in the process of doing that, you're creating more karma for the next life. But it's silly because it's already programmed in. You're going to achieve a certain amount of happiness. You may become very rich, by that struggle, but you'll be very unhappy. What you had to do to become rich, and I might lose it. It's if you have, that was the phrase. If you have nothing, you have nothing. If you have nothing, you have nothing to lose, right? I think it was a hippie thing, But there's some point to that. If you're happy with minimal things, you see. This is the great value. If you learn how to tap into that reservoir of pleasure in your heart, then what's the problem? You can live very, very simply, but very, very happily. But if you're measuring your happiness by how much you have in relation to, the millionaires and the billionaires, you'll never be happy. Oh, I just have one car? Look, he has 20 cars. Yeah. I mean, it's idiotic, we understand. But that if you're in that mode, you're going to be miserable one way or another. So therefore, one as described by Narada Muni there, one should strive for going back to Godhead, seriously. And that's what this movement is all about. And the wonderful thing about it is that even a little effort, applied in the right direction, by becoming a little serious about chanting regularly like that, you're going to feel the wonderful effects of Hare Krishna. And if you're really fortunate, you'll get very serious about it, and become a genuine bhakta or bhaktin, whatever it may be. And we'll avoid this. We wouldn't dream of embracing this demoniac form of life. All right, listen, it's almost time, so I want to give you one or two little poems that I was looking at. And here's one that I chanted one time at a japa retreat, and it went over pretty well. Written by Rupa Goswami. I think it's quoted in the 2nd canto in a purport. Vidachaya mahidandam dina bando dayangva gatadihina babakkat kachadanyam mamasti nipatutasatakoti nirmalangvang davangbas tatapakilla bayodak stuyate chatakena. I don't know if anyone's familiar with this verse. The chataka subsists on rain it catches in midair, and so it's always praying to the cloud to send its fare. Yet though that cloud may send a thunderbolt instead of rain, that bird continues praying furtively despite the pain. Just like the Chataka, I fix my mind upon... No, he continues praying fervently despite the pain. Just like the Chataka, I fix my mind upon one goal, and that is you, O Lord, most kind to every fallen soul. So whether it is punishment you send or mercy sweet, I'll always pray to serve you sincerely at your lotus feet. Hare Krishna. So that mood is what we should try to embrace. And here's a short one that you can go on a t-shirt. Don't sin, you can't win. Love God, not the bod. Chant Hare Krishna. Hey, we're on the beach. Everyone's bod conscious, you know. And here's another one. Since pleasure is a dream, Krishna supreme, the aim is prem and the way is the name. That one they made a t-shirt for me. I have it at home. Yeah. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Thank you. I'll see you at the festival tomorrow.